31 unluckiest humans to ever walk Earth. You know what's terrifying? Sometimes life doesn't care how smart you are, how careful you are, or how well you plan. Sometimes the universe just decides you're the punchline. This isn't about people who made terrible decisions or had it coming. This is about people who got absolutely demolished by the most absurd, improbable, or just plain cruel twists of fate imaginable. We're talking about humans who could have walked through a field of four-leaf clovers and still gotten struck by lightning. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that bad luck doesn't need a reason, and karma has the worst sense of humor. Let that sink in. 1. Tsutomu Yamaguchi, double atomic bomb survivor. What if you survived one atomic bomb and then traveled directly into the second one? Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a Japanese engineer in Hiroshima on a business trip on August 6, 1945. He survived the atomic bombing, suffering burns and temporary blindness. The next day, despite his injuries, he returned to his home city of Nagasaki to report to work. On August 9th, as he was explaining to his supervisor what happened in Hiroshima, the second atomic bomb detonated. He survived again. Same person, both atomic bombs, 3 days apart. He lived to age 93, but spent his life dealing with radiation-related illnesses. Imagine surviving history's most devastating weapon twice because you had perfect attendance. The universe has a sixth sense of timing. 2. Roy Sullivan, human lightning rod. Here's a lesson in why some people should just stay indoors. Roy Sullivan, a U.S. park ranger in Virginia, holds the Guinness World Record for being struck by lightning the most times and surviving. 7 times. Between 1942 and 1977, lightning found him in his truck in ranger stations, while fishing, while walking, in his yard, everywhere. He lost his big toenail, had his eyebrows burned off, his hair set on fire multiple times, and suffered various burns and injuries. His wife was struck once while standing next to him. He started carrying a can of water to douse himself when he caught fire. In 1983, he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, reportedly over relationship issues. Survived lightning 7 times, couldn't survive heartbreak. The weather stays undefeated. 3. Violet Jessup, the unsinkable survivor. What if every ship you worked on decided to have a catastrophic disaster? Violet Jessup was a stewardess and nurse who worked on ocean liners in the early 1900s. In 1911, she was aboard the RMS Olympic when it collided with a warship and nearly sank. In 1912, she was on the Titanic when it hit an iceberg. She survived in a lifeboat. In 1916, she was on the HMHS Britannic, the Titanic's sister ship, when it hit a mine and sank. She survived again by jumping out of a lifeboat before it got sucked into the ship's propellers. 3 sister ships, 3 disasters, 1 very unlucky woman. She lived to age 83 and reportedly never trusted large ships again. Imagine putting survived 3 maritime disasters on your resume and still needing therapy. 4. Frayne Selak, the luckiest unlucky man. If the universe keeps trying to kill you and failing, is that luck or a curse? Frayne Selak, a Croatian music teacher, survived an absurd series of near-death experiences. In 1962, his train derailed into a river. 17 died. He survived. In 1963, his first plane flight blew a door open mid-flight. 19 died. He was ejected and landed in a haystack. In 1966, a bus he was on crashed into a river. 4 died. He swam to shore. In 1970, his car caught fire on a highway. He escaped before the fuel tank exploded. In 1973, another car fire, same outcome. In 1995, he was hit by a bus in Zagreb, but walked away with minor injuries. In 1996, he avoided a head-on collision by swerving off a cliff, but was ejected before the car exploded. Then, in 2003, he won $1 million in the lottery. He's either the luckiest unlucky person or the unluckiest lucky person. The universe couldn't decide whether to kill him or compensate him. 5. And Hodges, the only confirmed human hit by a meteorite. Here's a lesson in cosmic-level bad luck. On November 30th, 1954, and Hodges of Alabama was napping on her couch when a grapefruit-sized meteorite crashed through her roof, bounced off her radio, and hit her in the hip, leaving a massive bruise. She's the only confirmed person in recorded history to be struck by a meteorite. The odds are astronomically low, literally 1 in trillions. Afterwards, her landlord sued for ownership of the meteorite. The media circus stressed her out, and she and her husband eventually divorced, partly due to the attention. She donated the meteorite to a museum and lived in relative obscurity until her death in 1972. Imagine being chosen by the universe for a 1 in a trillion event, and all you got was a bruise, a lawsuit, and a divorce. Space rocks stay petty. 6. Eben Byers, radium enthusiast. What if your health regimen was actually killing you and nobody told you until it was too late? Eben Byers was a wealthy American socialite and industrialist who injured his arm in 1927. A doctor recommended Radithor, a patent medicine containing radium, as a cure. Byers drank over 1,400 bottles between 1927 and 1931, believing it made him feel great. It didn't. Radium is lethally radioactive. His jaw disintegrated. His bones crumbled. Holes formed in his skull. He died in 1932 in excruciating agony, and his body was so radioactive it had to be buried in a lead-lined coffin. A Wall Street Journal headline read, "The radium water worked fine until his jaw came off." Imagine trusting your doctor and ending up as a warning label. Snake oil with actual poison. 7. The Man in the Iron Mask, identity erased. What if you were imprisoned for 34 years and nobody knows why or who you were? In the late 1600s, a mysterious prisoner was held in French prisons, forced to wear a black velvet or iron mask to conceal his identity. He was treated relatively well, but forbidden from revealing his face or identity. He died in 1703 after 34 years of imprisonment. His true identity remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Theories range from a disgraced noble to an illegitimate brother of King Louis XIV. Whoever he was, he lived and died without anyone knowing his face or name. Imagine being so unlucky that history forgets you existed, while simultaneously making you famous for being forgotten. Anonymity as eternal punishment. 8. Urbane Grandier, burned for demons he didn't summon. Here's a lesson in being accused of witchcraft by horny nuns. Urbane Grandier was a French Catholic priest in the 1630s who was charismatic, educated, and unfortunately handsome. A group of Ursuline nuns at a local convent began experiencing what they claimed were demonic possessions, and they accused Grandier of summoning the demons and seducing them through witchcraft. The real issue? Grandier had made political enemies, including Cardinal Richelieu, and the accusations were convenient. Despite no evidence, he was tortured and burned at the stake in 1634. His last words were reportedly prayers for his accusers. Imagine being killed because some nuns had hallucinations and your political enemies saw an opportunity. The 1600s were unhinged. 9. Grigory Rasputin, the man who wouldn't die until he did. What if you survived poison, gunshots, and beatings, but still ended up dead anyway? Grigory Rasputin, the Russian mystic and advisor to the Romanov family, was murdered in December 1916 by nobles who feared his influence. Accounts vary, but legend says he was poisoned with cyanide-laced cakes and wine. He kept eating and drinking. He was shot in the back. He got up and attacked his killers. He was shot 3 more times. He still tried to escape. He was beaten with clubs, wrapped in a carpet, and thrown into the icy Neva River. Autopsy reports suggest he drowned. His killers tried every method available, and he still wouldn't die easily. The unlucky part? All that resilience, and he still ended up murdered. Surviving the impossible doesn't stop the inevitable. 10. William Coget, death by deck of cards. If you're going to escape execution, don't do it with playing cards. William Coget was sentenced to death in California in 1930 for murder. While awaiting execution, he fashioned a homemade bomb using a hollow metal pipe, torn up playing cards, which he moistened and packed into the pipe and a heating element. He placed the bomb near his head, and it exploded, killing him instantly. He essentially executed himself to avoid execution. The irony is brutal. Imagine going through the trouble of building a bomb to avoid the gas chamber, only to blow yourself up instead. Same result, worse method. Resourcefulness meets futility. 11. Aeschylus, killed by airborne turtle. Here's a lesson in avoiding prophecies by going outside. Aeschylus, the ancient Greek playwright considered the father of tragedy, was told by an oracle he would be killed by a falling object. To avoid this, he spent more time outdoors away from buildings. In 455 BCE, an eagle, or possibly a bearded vulture, flying overhead mistook his bald head for a rock and dropped a tortoise on it to crack the shell. The tortoise killed him. He tried to outsmart fate and got murdered by a flying turtle. Imagine being one of the greatest writers in history and your death is a punchline. The gods have a dark sense of humor. 12. Sigurd the Mighty, defeated by a dead enemy's tooth. What if you won the battle but lost to basic hygiene? Sigurd the Mighty, a 9th century Norse Earl of Orkney, defeated an enemy named Maelbrigd in combat and beheaded him. As a trophy, Sigurd strapped the severed head to his saddle and rode home. As he rode, Maelbrigd's protruding tooth cut Sigurd's leg. The wound became infected, and Sigurd died from the infection, killed by a dead man's tooth. Imagine winning in battle, taking the head as a prize, and dying because you didn't consider dental hazards. Viking trophy culture meets bacteria. 13. The dancing plague victims of 1518. What if you started dancing and couldn't stop until you died? In July 1518, in Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, a woman named Frau Trophia began dancing in the street. She danced for days. Within a week, 34 others joined her. Within a month, around 400 people were dancing uncontrollably. Many danced until they collapsed from exhaustion, strokes, or heart attacks. Dozens died. The cause remains debated: mass hysteria, ergot poisoning, or religious fervor. The authorities tried to cure it by encouraging more dancing. It made it worse. Imagine your body forcing you to dance to death, and the government solution is dance harder. The 1500s were a nightmare. 14. Joseph Avinash. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong name. Here's a lesson in mistaken identity going catastrophically wrong. In 1985, Joseph Avinash, a Canadian tourist, was in Grenada during the U.S. invasion. He was mistaken for a Cuban soldier due to his appearance and the chaotic nature of the invasion. American forces shot him, thinking he was an enemy combatant. He survived, but was severely injured. He wasn't a soldier, wasn't involved in any conflict, was just in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong look. Vacation plans that include getting shot by your own side's military due to mistaken identity is peak bad luck. Travel insurance doesn't cover geopolitical chaos. 15. The crew of the USS William D. Porter, friendly fire champions. What if your entire naval career was a series of humiliating accidents? In 1943, the USS William D. Porter was escorting the USS Iowa, which was secretly carrying President Franklin D. Roosevelt to a conference. During a practice drill, the Porter accidentally fired a live torpedo at the Iowa with the president on board. The Iowa had to take evasive maneuvers. Later, the Porter's crew dropped a depth charge near their own ship, caused a boiler explosion, ran aground, and generally proved themselves to be cursed. In 1945, a kamikaze plane crashed near them, and the underwater explosion sank the ship. No one died, but their reputation never recovered. Imagine being so unlucky that your ship becomes a punchline before it even sinks. Friendly fire stays unfriendly. 16. Brandon Lee, killed by a prop gun. What if a movie prop actually killed you? Brandon Lee, son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, was filming The Crow in 1993 when a prop gun malfunctioned. A dummy cartridge tip was lodged in the barrel from a previous scene. When the gun was fired with a blank, the projectile shot out like a real bullet and struck Lee in the abdomen. He died hours later at age 28. A freak accident involving multiple safety failures killed him while he was making a movie about a murdered man returning from the dead. The irony is suffocating. His father died young under mysterious circumstances. Brandon died young from a one-in-a-million accident. Bad luck runs in families. 17. Gary Hoy, demonstrating unbreakable glass. Here's a lesson in not testing building safety features with your body. Gary Hoy, a lawyer in Toronto, was known for demonstrating the strength of the windows in his office building by throwing himself against them. On July 9, 1993, during a reception, he did this stunt again to impress a group of visitors on the 24th floor. The glass didn't break. The window frame gave way. He fell to his death. The glass was indeed unbreakable. The frame was not. Imagine being right about the glass and still dying. Technically correct, fatally wrong. Engineering oversight stays undefeated. 18. The Donner Party, trapped by snow and bad decisions. What if your shortcut turned into cannibalism? In 1846, the Donner Party, a group of American pioneers, attempted to take a shortcut to California called the Hastings Cutoff. It wasn't actually shorter. They got delayed, then trapped in the Sierra Nevada mountains by early snowstorms. Of the 87 members, only 48 survived the winter. Many resorted to cannibalism to stay alive. The survivors were traumatized for life. The unlucky part wasn't just the snow. It was trusting a guidebook written by a guy who'd never actually taken a route. Imagine following GPS directions into a nightmare where you have to eat your friends. Shortcuts have consequences. 19. Terry Kath, the ultimate, I didn't know it was loaded. What if you played Russian roulette with a gun you thought was empty? Terry Kath, the guitarist for the band Chicago, was at a party in 1978. He was playing with guns and put one to his head, telling a friend, "Don't worry, it's not loaded." He pulled the trigger. It was loaded. He died instantly at age 31. Jimi Hendrix had called him a better guitarist than himself. Kath's death was ruled accidental, but it's one of the most avoidable tragedies in rock history. Imagine being one of the most talented musicians alive and dying because you didn't check the chamber. Gun safety exists for a reason. 20. Julianne Coepke fell from the sky and survived. What if you fell 2 miles from an airplane and lived to walk through the jungle alone? On December 24, 1971, 17-year-old Julianne Coepke was on a flight over the Peruvian rainforest when lightning struck the plane, causing it to break apart midair. She fell approximately 10,000 feet while still strapped to her seat. She survived. She was the sole survivor among 93 people. She then walked through the Amazon rainforest for 10 days, injured and alone, before finding help. She had a broken collarbone, cuts, and infections. She survived because her mother, a biologist, had taught her jungle survival. She's unlucky for being on the plane. She's lucky she survived. The universe couldn't decide which one to commit to. 21. The villagers of Centralia, Pennsylvania, the town's still on fire. What if your entire town caught fire underground and burned for 60-plus years? In 1962, a fire was lit in a landfill in Centralia, Pennsylvania, to clean up trash. The fire spread to an exposed coal seen beneath the town. The coal mine fire has been burning ever since. By the 1980s, sinkholes opened, carbon monoxide seeped into homes, and the ground became too hot to walk on. The government relocated most residents and demolished the town. A handful of people refused to leave. The fire is expected to burn for another 250 years. Imagine your hometown being condemned because someone lit a fire that couldn't be stopped. Real estate values dropped slightly. 22. Henry Ziegland, the bullet that waited. Here's a lesson in karma, taking the scenic route. In 1883, Henry Ziegland of Texas broke up with his girlfriend, who was so distraught she killed herself. Her brother, seeking revenge, shot Ziegland and then killed himself. Ziegland survived. The bullet only grazed his face and lodged in a tree. In 1913, Ziegland decided to cut down that same tree. He used dynamite. The explosion dislodged the bullet, which shot out and struck Ziegland in the head, killing him. The bullet waited 30 years. Imagine cheating death and then being killed by the same bullet 3 decades later. Revenge is a dish served cold with explosives. 23. The crew of the Byford Dolphin explosive decompression. What if opening the wrong door killed you in the worst way possible? In 1983, the Bifer Dolphin, a deep-sea drilling rig, experienced a catastrophic decompression accident. Divers were in a pressurized chamber when a technician accidentally opened a sealed door too early. The chamber explosively decompressed from 9 atmospheres to 1 in a fraction of a second. 4 divers and 1 technician died instantly. One diver was forced through a 60-centimeter opening, essentially turning his body inside out. It's considered one of the worst diving accidents in history. Imagine dying because someone opened a door. Pressure physics don't forgive mistakes. 24. Giles Corey, pressed to death for not talking. What if refusing to confess meant being crushed slowly? During the Salem witch trials in 1692, Giles Corey, an elderly farmer, was accused of witchcraft. He refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Under English law, this meant he couldn't be tried, so authorities used pain forte et dur, pressing him with heavy stones to force a plea. For 2 days, they piled stones on him. He refused to speak except to demand more weight. He died after 2 days of torture, becoming a martyr. His property couldn't be seized because he was never convicted. He saved his family's inheritance by being crushed to death. Unlucky and defiant. 25. Vladimir Lakono's bubblegum bomb. Here's a lesson in checking your gum before you chew. In 2009, 25-year-old Vladimir Lakonos, a Ukrainian chemistry student, was found dead with his jaw blown off. Investigators believe he had a habit of chewing gum while studying and had accidentally dipped his gum into a bowl containing an unidentified explosive substance he'd been working with at his desk. The explosive was coated onto the gum. When he chewed it, it detonated. He essentially blew his own face off with bubblegum. Imagine mixing your snacks with your chemistry homework and dying because of it. Lab safety rules exist because of people like this. 26. The villagers of Lake Nyos, Cameroon, Killer Lake. What if a lake burped and killed 1,700 people overnight? On August 21st, 1986, Lake Nyos in Cameroon released approximately 1.6 million tons of carbon dioxide in a limnic eruption. The CO2, heavier than air, flowed down valleys, suffocating people and animals within a 16-mile radius. About 1,700 people and 3,500 livestock died overnight, most in their sleep. Survivors described the air smelling like rotten eggs or gunpowder. The lake literally burped death. Imagine going to bed and never waking up because the lake decided to release gas. Nature's most passive-aggressive disaster. 27. The man who survived Hiroshima and died in Nagasaki. What if you survived the first bomb, evacuated, and died in the second? Several people experienced both atomic bombings, but one man, whose name is often disputed or unconfirmed, reportedly survived Hiroshima on August 6th, fled to what he thought was safety in Nagasaki, and died in the August 9th bombing. Unlike Tsutomu Yamaguchi, who survived both, this man survived the first and was killed by the second. Imagine fleeing the worst weapon in history directly into its sequel. Geography is not always destiny, but sometimes it really is. 28. Pier Paolo Pasolini, murdered on a beach. Here's a lesson in meeting the wrong person at the wrong time. Pier Paolo Pasolini, the famous Italian filmmaker and intellectual, was murdered on November 2nd, 1975, on a beach in Ostia, near Rome. He was beaten to death and run over multiple times by his own car. A 17-year-old named Giuseppe Pelosi confessed, claiming it was after a sexual encounter gone wrong. Decades later, Pelosi recanted, saying he was coerced and others were involved. Pasolini had been working on exposing political corruption and had made powerful enemies. Whether it was a random crime or an assassination remains debated. Either way, one of Italy's greatest filmmakers died violently on a beach at age 53. Art doesn't protect you. 29. The Essex Crew, real-life Moby Dick. What if you were shipwrecked and resorted to cannibalism because a whale attacked you? In 1820, the American whaling ship Essex was rammed and sunk by a sperm whale in the Pacific Ocean, an event that inspired Moby Dick. The 20 surviving crew members took to lifeboats, drifting for months. They resorted to cannibalism, drawing lots to see who would be killed and eaten. Only 8 survived. Imagine being a professional whale hunter and getting revenge murdered by a whale, then eating your friends to survive. Herman Melville read the account and thought this would make a great novel. Survival comes at a cost. 30. The crew of the Kursk submarine trapped underwater. What if you survived an explosion only to slowly suffocate, waiting for rescue that came too late? In August 2000, the Russian nuclear submarine Kursk suffered explosions during a naval exercise and sank to the bottom of the Barents Sea. Of the 118 crew members, 23 survived the initial explosions and sealed themselves in a rear compartment. They had air but no heat. Rescue efforts were delayed due to bureaucracy and pride. Russia initially refused international help. The survivors wrote notes to their families and waited. They suffocated over several days. When rescuers finally reached them, it was too late. Imagine surviving a disaster only to die, slowly waiting for help that was delayed by politics. Cold War pride killed them. 31. The villagers of Pompeii, preserved in ash. What if you were immortalized forever as a victim of bad timing? On August 24th, 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying the Roman city of Pompeii under volcanic ash and pumice. About 2,000 people died, their bodies preserved in the ash as it hardened. Archaeologists later discovered them frozen in their final moments, embracing loved ones, shielding children, trying to escape. They become one of the most famous archaeological sites in history. The unlucky part? They're now eternal tourist attractions, their deaths on permanent display. Imagine dying and then being gawked at by tourists for 2,000 years. Immortality, but as a cautionary tale. And there you have it. 31 people whose luck was so catastrophically bad it defies probability. From atomic bombs and lightning strikes to dancing plagues and turtle murders. These humans proved that sometimes the universe just picks someone to mess with. No reason, no warning, just cosmic-level bad luck. It's a reminder that careful planning, intelligence, and caution sometimes mean absolutely nothing when fate decides you're the punchline. So which story shocked you the most? Which one made you check your own luck? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this tour through humanity's worst days made you feel a little better about your own life, hit that like button and subscribe for more history that proves things could always be worse. Stay grateful for your boring, uneventful life.